Napoleon Bonaparte, the first consul and emperor of the French Empire during the early 19th century, and is considered by most historians to be one of the greatest military leaders of all time. Hello everyone, welcome to Top 10 History, your hub for historical lists and amazing history facts. Today we're going to go over the top 10 amazing facts about Napoleon Bonaparte. Make sure to watch until number 1 because it's one of the most amazing facts about the little corporal that will surely surprise you. Before we begin, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel with notifications on because we release a new historical top 10 list every single day. Also make sure to smash that like button. Alright, let's get right into the video. He was originally loyal to Corsica, not France. Through most of his life, Napoleon was known as an extraordinary leader in the early 19th century France. He rose the ranks as a general in the French army and eventually rose up to be the first consul of France and eventually declared himself the Emperor of France. So you might think that Napoleon is as French as it gets. However, he wasn't always crazy about France. Napoleon was born on a small island off the coast of Italy called Corsica. The island of Corsica used to be its own independent state, but the French Empire declared ownership of the island a year before Napoleon was born. Because of this, during his early life he longed to see Corsica overthrow French rule and was not initially a supporter of the Empire of France. He even called the French, quote, monsters, who are said to be the enemies of free men. After attending school in France, Napoleon realized how much bigger the world is outside this tiny island and changed his allegiance to and eventually joined the French army. His first wife, Josephine, narrowly escaped execution. Unfortunately for Napoleon, he was not his first wife's, Josephine's, first husband. Josephine was born in Martinique and was married to a French aristocrat, Alexandre du Beauharnais, at a young age of 16. After their marriage, the French Revolution hit and French aristocrats became a target in the rebellion. The couple was imprisoned in Le Carme and her husband was sent to the guillotine. Just a day before her trial, the executions were suddenly halted. If she were imprisoned only a day earlier, she would have died a lot earlier and would have never met Napoleon. Josephine then met Napoleon at a party. Josephine was 32 and widowed at the time and Napoleon was 26. They decided to get married 6 months after meeting. On paper, she lowered her age by 4 years and raised Napoleon's age so that they would be closer to age on paper. Napoleon wasn't actually short. When one thinks of Napoleon Bonaparte, one starts to put some labels in their head. The stereotypes will lead you to believe that he is quite shorter in height than average. Well, these rumors could be traced back to the British Empire during the Napoleonic Wars. The British Empire was arguably Napoleon's greatest nemesis during the Napoleonic Wars. English newspapers and propaganda wanted to depict Napoleon as a weak and comical figure, so the rumor was started that Napoleon was a laughably short man, which turns out to be nothing but a rumor in order to tarnish his image. So how tall was Napoleon? If some sources are to be believed, Napoleon was probably around 5 foot 6 inches or about 168 centimeters, which was considered average height for the time. Another theory on why this rumor came to be is that French measurements at the time were a little bit shorter than English measurements. When Napoleon died, a physician's note on his coffin said that he is 5'2" from head to toe. However, this was a French measurement and that would equate to 5'6" in English measurements. He was a skilled writer. Napoleon was mostly known as the ruler of France as well as an extremely gifted military tactician, but he was also incredibly skilled as a writer. He often would write his own propaganda that would exaggerate his achievements, such as his campaign in Egypt, which was arguably a failure for the French. But behind all of the political and war-related work, the little corporal actually has a bit of a soft spot. He also wrote some very soppy and mushy love letters as well as a romantic novel. That's right, Napoleon Bonaparte, the master of war in early 19th century Europe, wrote a romance novel. It was written in 1795 when he was 26 and it was called Clisson et Eugénie. It is a fictional tale of a doomed romance of a soldier and his lover, which is believed to have a relation between Napoleon's own love life. It is believed that this work may have been influenced by earlier French literary writings such as Jean-Jacques Rousseau's La Nouvelle Heloise and Goethe's The Sorrows of Young Werther. He would disguise himself. Now, Napoleon was undoubtedly an ambitious man and he would do whatever he could to rise the ranks. Even when he was crowned the emperor and supreme ruler of France, he wanted to make sure he secured that title. What Napoleon would often do is dress up and disguise himself as a lower class bourgeoisie so that no one could recognize him. He would then walk the streets of France and start conversations with ordinary citizens. He would ask about how they felt about their government, how they felt about their emperor, and other similar questions. He would use this information to learn what the everyday citizen thought about him. It seems kind of narcissistic, but Napoleon may have also truly cared about the people of France and wanted to know their true feelings about his leadership. And what better way to do that is to disguise himself and get the honest opinions directly from the people themselves. He was possibly afraid of cats. Now, a lot of people have their irrational fears, but it might surprise most people that one of the bravest and most respected military leaders in history might have been afraid of something as innocent and harmless as a house cat. Napoleon may have suffered from ailurophobia, which is the fear of cats. It was said that even seeing a cat was enough to make Napoleon become nervous. It was said that he would jump on furniture and would not get down until the cat either left the room or was removed. Interestingly enough, other historical autocrats such as Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, Genghis Khan, Benito Mussolini, and Adolf Hitler may have also had the same irrational fear of cats as Napoleon. Now, there isn't much documented evidence that this was true, as this claim about Napoleon was mostly spread through rumors and word of mouth. There's even a claim that this fear may have developed from a wildcat attack that happened during his youth. But it is also possible that, like the fact that he is not really short, this was possibly another rumor spread by his enemies in order to tarnish his image. He discovered the Rosetta Stone. Before Napoleon became the revered leader of France that we know today, he was sent on a military campaign to Egypt. Napoleon was getting quite popular, so the French government sent him away on a military campaign in Egypt in an attempt to cut off British access to India through control of the Suez Canal, which would damage the British economy as well as the political control over some of its colonies. But while in Egypt, some of Napoleon's soldiers came across a very peculiar artifact, the Rosetta Stone. The Rosetta Stone is a large granite stone that had writing on it in the 3 different languages: Egyptian hieroglyphics, Demotic Egyptian, and Ancient Greek. This large stone was of huge significance because it allowed us to translate Egyptian hieroglyphics, leading us to much better understanding of the Egyptian culture and history. But what is not very much known is that the legendary artifact was actually discovered by Napoleon's soldiers during his campaign in Egypt in 1799. The campaign itself was relatively unsuccessful, but his discovery of the Rosetta Stone left a deep positive mark on history. He always wore poison around his neck. Something that is known to most is that Napoleon had many enemies. Since he was the emperor of a major European superpower and had many imperialistic ambitions, other European monarchs would team up against him in order to make sure Napoleon's power over Europe does not get out of control. Some of the countries that made up the coalitions against France were England, Austria-Hungary, Prussia, Russia, Naples, and Spain. Napoleon decided that if he ever got captured, he would rather die than suffer whatever fate the coalition had for him. After his unsuccessful invasion of Russia, which resulted in most of his army getting wiped out, he knew that the war was lost. Before he was captured by the Allies, he actually drank the poison that was kept around his neck all these years. However, the poison has been around his neck for so long that it actually expired and it did not kill him. Rather, just gave him a stomach ache. Rather than choosing his own fate and succumbing to poison, Napoleon was instead sent into exile. He plotted a second escape from exile. As we just talked about, Napoleon was exiled after being captured by the Allies. After failing to kill himself with poison, he was later exiled to a tiny island outside of Italy, Elba. After being on Elba for a while, he grew bored and escaped the island to return to France to reclaim his throne. After losing to the Allies for a second time at the Battle of Waterloo, he was exiled to an even more remote island in the middle of the South Atlantic, St. Helena. In order to prevent Napoleon from escaping again, the island was guarded by 2,000 British soldiers along with 2 British ships that circled the island 24/7. Seems like an impossible escape, right? The nearest land from the tiny remote island was about 1,200 miles away. Well, what a lot of people don't know is there were numerous plans to help Napoleon escape from his second exile at St. Helena. Although in exile and thousands of miles away from Europe, he still had many loyal followers who made attempts to break him out of exile and send him home. One of those plans involved sneaking in early models of the submarine, dive under the British ships that were patrolling around the island, and rescue the French emperor that way. Napoleon ultimately died before this plan was ever carried out. Number 1. Napoleon's death still remains a mystery. Napoleon Bonaparte was probably a man who would have loved to die a glorious death in battle, but there is still debate whether his death was really caused by how the British claimed it to be. Officially, according to the British, Napoleon developed stomach cancer and eventually succumbed to that. However, it is believed that Napoleon may have actually been poisoned by his captors. Upon examining his hair, scientists discovered that he had a lethal arsenic concentration, leading them to believe that he may not have died from stomach cancer, but instead arsenic poisoning. After his death, Napoleon was buried in several layers of coffins so that he could never come back to mess with Europe ever again. Did these facts shock you? Make sure that you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss out on more amazing historical facts and much more. If you like this video, check out this next video on the top 10 worst American presidents. Alright, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.